Bermuda braces for impact from a large, potentially major hurricane. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Tuesday, September 15th. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Dawn Paris. Good evening. Bermuda is now under a hurricane warning, with a large hurricane Humberto moving closer to the island and expected to be a major hurricane by the time it passes on Wednesday night. Humberto was up to 5 p.m. on Tuesday, a Category 2 hurricane with maximum sustained winds near 105 miles per hour. But the National Hurricane Center said some strengthening is forecast during the next 36 hours, and Humberto could become a major hurricane that's Category 3 or higher late Tuesday or Wednesday morning. The hurricane is located about 450 miles west of Bermuda and moving towards the east-northeast at 12 miles per hour. On the forecast track, the center of Humberto is expected to pass just to the northwest and north of Bermuda on Wednesday night, and the closest point of approach is currently forecast to be at 9 p.m. At a press conference on Tuesday afternoon, after a meeting of the Emergency Measures Organization, the EMO, National Security Minister Wayne Keynes announced several measures in preparation for the impact of Hurricane Humberto.
Everyone should be off the road here in Bermuda by 7 p.m. Wednesday evening. All public schools will close Wednesday afternoon at 12 p.m. Again, all public schools will close Wednesday at 12 noon. The last ferry will leave Hamilton at 12 noon on Wednesday. All buses will be off the road, with the last bus leaving Hamilton at 4 p.m. All government offices will close on Wednesday afternoon at 12 noon. The Bermuda Regiment will be embodied. The King Edward Memorial Hospital will initiate their hospital incident command tomorrow evening with increased staffing levels. Ambulances will be placed and assigned strategically around the island.
Humberto is not only getting stronger but bigger as well. Hurricane force winds extend outward up to 60 miles from the center, and tropical storm force winds extend outward up to 175 miles. National Disaster Coordinator Steve Cosham explained exactly what residents should expect to feel from Hurricane Humberto.
We're expecting tropical force winds, which is 35 knots, to impact the island 3 p.m. on Wednesday, all the way through the evening until 4 a.m. on Thursday. Storm force winds, which are 50 knots, will impact the island 7 p.m. on Wednesday through to 12 midnight. We will get gusts of hurricane force winds during that time, but the hurricane force winds are brushing the island, and at the present time we are not forecast to get sustained hurricane force winds.
The Bahamas government says it may create a memorial site where the mud and pigeon peas once stood as the country's largest shanty town communities before Hurricane Dorian hit. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis says his government is also considering tent cities to get people back to Grand Bahama and Abaco, which were devastated by the Category 5 hurricane. The death toll now stands at 51, with 1,300 people still missing. There have so far been over 5,000 evacuees as well. Prime Minister Minnis says Cabinet is considering the memorial site to pay respects to Hurricane Dorian victims. We get more in this Eyewitness News report.
Minnis said he's now focused on ensuring that those who are displaced are returned home. With many of the evacuees coming from the mud and pigeon pea communities, reports have already emerged that those who remain are trying to rebuild in those areas. Government has since put in place a cease order with plans to also establish a memorial at those sites for those who perished.
Discussing the matter at Cabinet now, we think it may be appropriate to declare those areas some form of memorial site in respect for those who would have died in those particular areas. Buildings on those areas were inferiorly built, and they were a setup for disaster, flooding, hurricanes, etc. and they were not built with any safety codes, and individuals' lives and health was in danger in those type facilities. We want to ensure that individuals are properly housed.
Prime Minister Minnis said government is also seeking to construct temporary housing to allow rebuilding to commence as soon as possible.
We're presently discussing the establishment of a man camp. The man camp would be able to house all staff, personnel, individuals, contractors and their staff, so that they can rebuild, clean up the island, etc.
Now he laid out the blueprint for the development, noting that the matter will be put before Cabinet for consideration.
We must also have what we call a tent city. It's not like the tent, the standard tent that you may be familiar with, but a tent city would have bathroom facility. Each unit would have 2-bedroom facility. You have recreation facility. You have facility for police. You have dining facility, cafeteria facility. So it's really a city. We feel that it's essential to move the individuals from New Providence back to this environment, but everything, inclusive of schooling facility.
Meantime, the Guyana government has pledged over $200,000 to the Bahamas to help it recover from Hurricane Dorian. We get more in this news source report.
The ravaged islands of the Bahamas continue to face hardships. The government of Guyana has announced that it will be donating $200,000 to the relief efforts in the sister CARICOM state. The announcement was made last evening by the Minister of State, Don Hastings-Williams, during a national telethon. The government has said it is saddened by the massive chaos Dorian has caused upon the Bahamas, while assuring that it will continue to render support to ensure relief speedily to the current situation.
Our brothers and sisters, Guyanese brothers and sisters who have made Bahamas their homeland have been severely affected, and I want to sympathize with them at this time. We're very much concerned not only for our Guyanese brothers and sisters, but for all who have been affected in the Bahamas. And to this date, I would like to update you that as a government, we have responded.
The death
In other news, Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is strongly objecting to a recent British Broadcasting Corporation BBC documentary on his country's Venezuelan amnesty exercise, and he says he plans to write the British government on it. The program, The Displaced, which started airing on social media this week, focused on Venezuelans seeking better life in Trinidad via government's registration drive over the May to June period this year. The Prime Minister has accused the BBC of playing into the agenda of some groups. We get more in this TTT news report.
In the BBC's documentary, The Displaced, it said that 40,000 Venezuelans are currently living in Trinidad and Tobago, and only 16,000 of them were registered. It claimed that the country made no moves to register the other 24,000. The Prime Minister said it was wrong of the BBC to quote such figures.
I don't know where they were getting those numbers from. We made it quite clear. If you are a Venezuelan in Trinidad and Tobago, come forward and be registered.
Dr. Rowley said he would be making a formal complaint to the British government, as the BBC is the UK's state broadcaster.
Because we are small, but we are not insignificant. And whatever we do, we don't mind you saying that we have done it. But we don't want you misrepresenting us in this very dangerous world.
When asked if the BBC had reached out to the government for a response on the matter, Dr. Rowley said the information was in the public domain and there was no need for a direct response from the Trinidad and Tobago government. He made it clear that the government does not have a communication problem.
This particular issue was so publicly ventilated, but we don't all agree on the same thing. So because you don't agree, doesn't mean that you should go out and misrepresent the facts. And we are not accepting that we have a communication problem where this is concerned. It is not an absence of a communication that caused these people to misrepresent our circumstance.
The Prime Minister.
Still to come in Caribbean Newsline, St. Lucia to inject $1 million in the UK market, in the UK tourism market. We'll be right back.
Coming up on Caribbean Passport, highlights of a memorable CariFesta 14 in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. The creativity of the Caribbean and all that the region has to offer was on full display. Celebrate our Festival of Arts as we strengthen the bond between us on Caribbean Passport, the CariFesta edition, right here on this station.
How do you feel about a woman working and being a wife?
So, in what way? I mean,
And like, would you prefer her to be outside of the home or inside the home?
to me, both. I grew up in the South, so my wife always says my mom was like super mom, but, she was also superintendent of Jackson County School District, but she also was a mother. So she took care of me and my sister and my dad, so she, did everything. So I wasn't raised with a woman only saying just staying at home.
After an emergency, you can help yourself and others by looking, listening, and linking.
Looking because you want to see if the person has some signs that is in distressing. Looking for the symptoms, how best you can support the person. And then listening, because listening is very important. Listening with your ears, listening with your eyes. If you do that well, then you'll be able to link them to the appropriate resources.
Be ready, look, listen, and link.
In anticipation of the United Kingdom's exit from the European Union, Brexit as it's known, the St. Lucia government says it will invest an additional $1 million in the tourism market there to ensure it remains competitive in Britain. We get the details in this report from HTS News Force.
Lucia plans to inject some US $1 million into the United Kingdom-UK market to boost tourism arrivals in anticipation of its withdrawal from the European Union. Minister for Tourism Dominic Fede, who attended the St. Lucia UK 9th Annual Showcase earlier in September, made the disclosure at the pre-cabinet media conference on Monday.
We have discussed as well with the general travel trade of the UK, our intention to spend an additional $1 million into the UK market to drive a lot of business in anticipation of the fallout in confidence that will come because of the ongoing Brexit debate and negotiations with the EU and the plan by the United Kingdom to come out of the European Union. So it is very important that we preempt this fallout to ensure that we are maximizing visibility of St. Lucia, to ensure that that visibility is driving the kind of traffic that we want.
Fede revealed that the St. Lucian team was able to raise about $100,000 for charitable causes, including the Boys Training Center and the St. Lucia Diabetes Association at the showcase. He says the latest tourism department figures indicates that St. Lucia's year-to-date growth stands at 7.5%.
The Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, is warning the region to be vigilant of the threats of vector-borne diseases. The warning comes amidst concerns over dengue cases in a number of South American countries. The health agency says the region is experiencing a new epidemic cycle that mostly affects children under the age of 15. The region is also closely observing reports of a rare disease in the United States, which is reportedly spread by mosquitoes. We get more in this Choice News report.
A rare viral infection spread by mosquitoes has raised serious alarms in the United States after reportedly claiming at least 3 lives. Eastern equine encephalitis is believed to cause inflammation in the brain, killing about 1/3 of patients who contract it and often leaving survivors with mild to severe brain damage. At a recent meeting of regional health ministers, a representative of the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, warned that the region should always remain vigilant against the threat of vector-borne diseases.
What we are seeing in different regions in the Americas, not just in the United States of America, is an increase of some of the mosquito populations, an increase in some of the diseases that these mosquitoes carry, but that is why we have to make sure that we are vigilant and that we live in a globalized community. So anything that happens north, south, east, west of St. Lucia, of the Caribbean, we have to be alert about it.
He explained that such threats emphasize the need for us to protect our populations as a region.
We have, for example, the outbreak of measles at the moment in Europe. We have an outbreak of measles in a lot of countries that send tourists to the Caribbean region. And that is why we have to be very, very careful and make sure also that our populations are protected. So that's why we have to ensure that we continue to be high and strong with our vaccination campaigns. We have to ensure that all our children are vaccinated, all our teenagers and adults are vaccinated, because only if we protect our population can we ensure that nothing comes to our shores, or if anything comes to our shores, we're also protected.
Earlier this year, the Pan American Health Organization called for countries in the region of the Americas to be prepared for possible outbreaks of dengue. According to PAHO, since the 1980s, dengue has caused cyclical outbreaks and epidemics every 3 to 5 years. PAHO says prevention is the most effective tool to address vector-borne diseases such as dengue.
Ahead in Newsline Sport, Jamaica's reggae girls get all the money they're owed. Stay with us.
So we've added the garlic and the pepper that we have pounded in a mortar. Put some water to make our paste. Time for our curry paste now. Okay guys, so we're gonna add our fish now. It's time to add the fish. The bangamary.
Yo, I go feel so good. I go be like, I might get butterflies. Like
Why would I?
I mean,
Come on.
yo, that mean that this woman is truly and real into me without a shadow of a doubt.
Don't try that.
What
God
mean?
took
So
the ribs out of man.
wait.
God took the ribs out of man, and it's a man's job to provide.
Where is that in the Bible? Show it in the Bible where it states that man should be the one proposing to woman. I never see that though come with that.
No woman should.
Topping our sports segment this Tuesday, Jamaica's reggae girls finally received their salaries after they took to social media complaining about non-payment. Jamaica Football Federation President Michael Ricketts confirmed this on the day he was voted in for a second time as head of the island's football body. TVJ's Spencer Darlington has more.
Sealed and approved. With no challengers, Michael Ricketts was officially returned as the JFF president at Sunday's annual general meeting. And speaking to TVJ Sports immediately afterwards, Ricketts said the JFF has settled all outstanding salaries with the national women's team.
The girls have been paid. All the monies were to their accounts starting, I think, Thursday. A number of them indicated on Friday that the monies were in their accounts.
However, the salaries for the Reggae Girls team coaches are still outstanding, with just days away from the September 25 ultimatum given to the JFF.
And what I want is a amicable settlement of the issues that are presently on the table with these coaches. And we have had a decent relationship, but the truth is that the JFF runs football. And we want to ensure that we have a respectful relationship, but people must be reminded that it's the JFF that runs football.
Meanwhile, Ricketts has also dispelled news that the Reggae Boys are also planning their own strike ahead of next month's Nations League match, as they are yet to receive any payment from the recent CONCACAF Gold Cup.
We met with them in Montego Bay, and there's absolutely no semblance of that. I can categorically tell you that that is not true. We have met with the leaders of the group, and they too have been made aware that they are to be paid from the CONCACAF funds that we have not yet gotten, but we will be paying them very shortly.
Sunday's JFF approval will see Ricketts serving for the next 4 years as president, while Bruce Gaynor and Raymond Anderson have been returned as vice presidents and will be joined by Peter Reid, who replaced Gary Sinclair, who did not seek re-election.
Still in football, Reggae Boys striker Junior Flemings scored twice as Phoenix Rising FC extended their astonishing winning run to 20 with a 4-1 crushing victory over La Galaxy second to clinch top spot in the Western Conference and secure home field advantage throughout the United Soccer League playoffs. Hosting Galaxy at Casino Arizona Field last weekend, Phoenix raced to a 3-0 lead at halftime, courtesy of Solomon Asante's 10th minute penalty and 2 goals from the 23-year-old Flemings. Kay Currynuck pulled one back for the visitors in the 76th minute, but Ben Spencer's strike a minute later gave Phoenix an emphatic victory. The match was marred by spectator trouble in the 84th minute, however, and was subsequently abandoned after a Galaxy player was struck by a missile from the stands. Phoenix have not lost or drawn since May 4th when they went down 2-0 away to Orange County's SC, and Flemings has been a key element of that run, having now notched 13 goals for the season. Switching sports now, weak batting again crippled West Indies women as they slumped to a 9-wicket defeat in the second T20 International and yet to another series defeat to Australia women on Monday night. Sent in at Kensington Oval under lights following a rain delay, the hosts could only gather a paltry 97 for 9 of their 20 overs, with opener Brittany Cooper top scoring with 39. Cooper and Natasha McLean were both run out in the 11th over, and West Indies needed a 23-run 8th-wicket stand between Chanel Henry and Shabika Ghaznavi to get up to their eventual total. In reply, the Aussies hardly broke a sweat as Healy powered the uncomplicated run chase with an innings containing 10 fours. She dominated a 44-run opening stand with Beth Mooney before combining with captain Meg Lanning, who made 22 not out, to post another 54 in an unbroken second-wicket stand. A South African long-distance swimmer smashed a 5-year-old record after completing the longest ocean channel swim on Sunday. Cameron Bellamy swam from Barbados to St. Lucia, which covers 151.7 miles, beating Chloe McCardle's record of 124.4 miles. Choice TV captured the moment Cameron entered St. Lucia's waters.
Although strong cross currents running along the length of Sandy Beach prevented the made-for-television scene where the heroic swimmer finally hauls his battered body out of the salt water as crowds of cheering supporters welcome him ashore, the somewhat anticlimactic finish of Cameron Bellamy's 2-day endurance trial did nothing to diminish the magnitude of his feat. A ripple of excitement ran through the watchers on Sandy Beach when the masts of his support boat, which had traveled alongside him from Barbados, became visible just off the southern tip of Maria Major. As the currents pulled him across the bay, it soon became clear that the welcoming party would have to move. Quickly, people scrambled into any available vehicle, forming an impromptu motorcade towards the fishing docks in Viewfort Town, known locally as The Pond. While waiting for his arrival at the pond, I had the opportunity to interview Bellamy's mother, Janita. She radiated pride and concern as she spoke about her son's motivations.
He just feels he's a very privileged boy and wants to put a little bit back into the community. And he decided to start this Bunya Challenge back in 2011. And he decided to do 3 things: swim the English Channel, not being a swimmer, cycle from Land's End to John O'Groats. He is a cyclist, and row. He's also done a lot of rowing, and he's rowed now from Australia across to the Seychelles. So he Once he started that, I think he just couldn't stop.
Bellamy's 151-kilometer journey, which has been billed as the longest channel swim in recorded history, raised funds for several charitable causes in his home country of South Africa, as well as in Barbados and St. Lucia. He began the endurance feat in St. Peter's Bay, Barbados, and completed his trial 56.5 hours later by touching a rock at Mula Sheikh to mark his official landfall.
And finally, Jamaican jockey Dane Nelson and Barbadian riding star Rico Walcott both won 2 of the 9 added money stake races on Sunday's stakes-rich 10-card race card to make the headlines at Century Downs, riding on the Alberta Fall Classic Day at the Western Canada Oval with nearly 450,000 Canadian dollars up for grabs. Nelson scored in race 4 with 2-1 choice Pearl of Knowledge to win the 50,000 Canadian dollar Sturgeon River Stakes before returning to win the 50,000 Canadian dollar Buford Stakes in race 7 with favourite Zicatella. Walcott, meanwhile, took the 50,000 Canadian dollar Alberta Premier's Futurity with favourite Dune d'Ora in race 3 and followed up in race 9 with 2-1 chance Zippity Zap to land the Alberta Breeders' Handicap, also worth 50,000 Canadian dollars. And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
Several key Tobago House of Assembly projects are ongoing. And to ensure they remain both on time and on schedule, THA Chief Secretary Honorable Kelvin Charles led a tour of the projects recently. Also on the tour were Councillor Kwesi Devines, the Secretary of Infrastructure, Quarries and the Environment, and a technical advisor at the Infrastructure Division, Telshon Mark Wellington. The team's first stop was Thompson River Bridge in Lowlands.
Again, the major developments of this day. Bermuda braces for impact from a large, potentially major Hurricane Humberto on Wednesday night. The island is under hurricane warning. And in sport, Jamaica's reggae girls finally receive outstanding salaries after going public about non-payment. And that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport around the clock, subscribe to CanadaNews.com. For more of our programming, log on to CaribVision.tv and check out our YouTube channel. We'll be back here again tomorrow, but from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and have yourselves a good night.